I was playing Nintendo in my room, and my dad came up to my room on a hot summer day and said, "Hey, we've got a job to do. We're going to go mow the neighbor's yard."
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do it, but he forced me to do it. And I made $20 for cutting that yard in about 2 hours, and I was hooked. I was hooked on entrepreneurialism ever since.
Thanks again for doing this, Bryan. You are very much appreciated. We are so excited to have you here at Leadership Stack. We have over 1,000 people listening all over the Philippines and abroad. And so we have Bryan here, who is a serial entrepreneur. He has founded a company, has exited his first company, and is now a tech entrepreneur from a blue-collar entrepreneur. That's very interesting. We're going to be running by some questions with him on how he's done it, some of his leadership styles and secrets. So tune in for that. So Bryan, thank you for joining us here in the studio.
Right on. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for giving us some of your time and a lot of your insights. So you've founded 2 businesses. Let's talk about the first one, Peachtree. When did that start? How young were you when you started that company?
Yeah, so Peachtree was a landscaping business, a company that would mow people's yards, plant trees, shrubs, mulch, things like that. I was 17 years old when I started that business. And over 15 years time, I grew that company from just myself and a push mower to over 150 people. And in 2013, sold that company to one of the largest landscaping businesses in the United States. Started it when I was just a teenager. I remember the day very clearly I started that business. I was playing Nintendo in my room, and my dad came up to my room on a hot summer day and said, "Hey, we've got a job to do. We're going to go mow the neighbor's yard."
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do it, but he forced me to do it. And I made $20 for cutting that yard in about 2 hours, and I was hooked. I was hooked on entrepreneurialism ever since.
Yeah. And so when were you planning, when did that, idea just get into your head that, I'm going to turn this into a business?
That's a great question. When I was in high school, I was just doing it as a way to make good money.
Yeah.
And then as I was in college, I would go to school on nights and weekends, and I would mow grass all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to realize my 3rd year of college, I was getting ready to graduate, and I was kind of just in the back of my mind kind of figuring out what I was making versus what I could make after I graduated school and went out to the job market. I was like, wait a second, I might as well just keep doing this grass cutting thing, man, because this is, I'm going to take a pay cut. I'm really going to take a pay cut. And so by the time I graduated college, I had 10 people working for me.
Wow.
And in school, I went to business school, and I was able to apply some things I learned in business school on how to grow the business. And when I was 23 and I had finished school, I thought, okay, let's do this. Let's make a real business out of this. And there was just no looking back.
What did your dad say when you were turning it into a business?
he said, I never really would have thought you would have ran with it like this. I'm so glad that he said, I'm so glad that I put you on to running your own landscaping business and not becoming an ice skater or something like that.
Yeah.
Something you can make money at.
And your dad was one of the biggest influences in your life, was he?
Absolutely. Yeah. He was really influential in terms of teaching me how to become a leader, because as I grew that company from 10 to 20 to 50 to 100 to 150 people, I had to kind of go through the school of hard knocks of learning how to become a good leader and a manager. And my dad, who had a military background, taught me what it meant to be a good leader and how to do that, and would point out things I was doing wrong, and turned me on to guys like John Maxwell and others that I just learned a lot of my leadership style from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you're from Nashville, Tennessee, which means that you listen to Dave Ramsey, one of the biggest personalities, especially in small to medium business that I look up to.
Highly controversial, but yeah, I'm a fan.
So am I. And his controversy just makes it sweeter.
Yes, it does.
So you were leading from yourself, right? So it was just you when you were 17 years old, and oh my gosh, you were a teenager then. It's so hard to lead yourself during that time, but there is something that sparked in you. And when was it when you realized you had to hire more people?
You start to understand that you're leaving money on the table. You can't get to it all, especially when you're starting a business just yourself. You're doing everything. You're doing the marketing, you're doing the reset, you're answering the phone, you're doing the physical work, you're doing the invoicing, everything you're doing. And you start to understand that, man, I just can't get to all the work that is coming my way. Yeah. And you start to understand I could make more money and I could provide opportunity for somebody else if I just brought on a helper.
Yeah.
And that sounds a lot easier than it really is. You don't understand how hard that's going to be. In many ways, going from 0 employees to 1 employee is as hard as going from 10 to 20.
Yeah.
Because you're doubling your business and you don't have the resources and you really are taking a leap of faith. And there might be some weeks that you personally aren't going to get a paycheck, but your employee will.
Yeah, that's true.
It happened to me many times over running my businesses that my employees got paid before I did. Mm-hmm. And so it was a leap of faith. Glad I did it. But most business owners, particularly in that industry, never do. They remain solo entrepreneurs. And there's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. That's fine. But there's a difference between being self-employed and being a business owner.
Yeah.
And there's a subtle distinction there. And once you start hiring employees and putting systems around a business, that's when you become a business owner.
Right. And so one of the questions that I'm super interested in, because we struggled with this at SEO Hacker when we were starting out, is hiring. So how did you hire during that time from yourself to 1 to 10 employees? What was your hiring process? What did it look like?
Yeah, so the first helper is basically you try to, I remember a movie back in the 90s with Michael Keaton called Multiplicity, where he was able to clone himself. Yeah. You are literally trying to clone yourself. Mm-hmm. And you realize that nobody's going to work as hard as you do. Nobody's going to do it exactly like what you want. And for me personally, I just beat my head against the wall for years. And luckily I came across a book called The E-Myth. And this book is about a lady who opened up her own bakery because she loved making pies. And what she quickly learned was that there's a big difference between making pies and running a business that sold pies. And the book takes you through the process of creating systems around every role within your business. And even like in the early days, you could probably have 10 or 12 roles in your business. It's just going to be your name on all of them. So once you kind of go through that mental exercise of understanding that, like in my business, there was a sales guy, and there was a receptionist, and there was a crew foreman, and then a helper, and then a quality assurance person. And it was my name on all of these roles. Right. But as I started to hire 1, 2, 3, 4 people, I was able to scratch my name off that role and put somebody else in there, and literally go through the exercise of creating a document that you hand to that person so they understand what's expected of them, the roles and goals of that position.
So you created like process documents, expectation documents, what winning looks like, all of these things.
Way too late. Year 4 or 5. If I had done it year 1, it would have saved me 2 or 3 years.
No one does it on year 1, my friend.
No.
I haven't done it on year 1.
So I kind of hacked my way through it. Did it wrong. Had to do it wrong many years, and then I did it right.
Yeah. Likewise, I think we started doing it year 4, year 5, so you're pretty much on time with that one.
You got to do it every wrong way you can before you do it the right way.
Yeah, that's true. So you were leading from 10 people to 150 people That's huge. And I'm wondering, like, how do you lead 150 people? I'm leading 50 people right now, ages 20 to 31. I'm 31. I'm the oldest guy in SEO Hacker. And it's tough leading 50 millennials and centennials, but you're leading 150 people from all ages, from all different generations. How did you do that?
Yeah, and building that business, most everybody that worked for me was older than me because this was all
Mhm.
throughout my 20s,
Yeah.
and it wasn't without its challenges. And there's a million pieces of advice on this. What worked for me was investing in the culture of the business and making this business run like a family and less than like a big company. So for us, it was, why are we here? Why are we doing what we're doing? For me, the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek was really, really influential in how I built the culture around that business. And for us, we would always look at the company, look at the business as the vehicle of prosperity for everybody that was in it.
Right.
And yes, we served our clients. Yes, we took care of our customers. Yes, we did make the world a little bit of a more beautiful place by maintaining the landscaping in the parks that we did.
Mhm. Literally.
But yeah, literally, that was, something we did. And that was
Yeah.
like the what, right? Like that
Yeah.
was what we did. And how we did it was through quality, relentless execution of our services. But the why we did it, how, what, why,
Mhm.
was because if we did it right, we held on to our clients and the company won, everybody wins.
Yeah.
And the way we were able to distill that, one of the fun things we were able to do was every quarter we would identify some sort of project or initiative that one of our people wanted to do. So like a lot of our operating core of the business were immigrant workers from Central and South America. And so they would come up and work for the company and go back, or they might stay 2 or 3 years, and they would send a lot of their money back home
Mhm.
to support their families. And a lot of times they would identify as like, hey, I want to build a supermarket in Guatemala,
Mhm.
and I could get it going. I just need a loan for $25,000, and we would interest-free loan that money to make that happen. And we did that a couple of times. We're like, man, it's a lot of fun. So we started codifying it into like a process where every quarter would have this panel of people within the company that would look at all these proposals from the 100 some odd people that worked there. And we would help somebody buy a house. We would help somebody start a business back home, buy a new car, put your kid through school, whatever. It was all kinds of different stuff. And then we would follow up on that. And then in our all hands meetings, we would talk about the progress. Like, hey, here is how Jorge's soccer stadium is doing in Mexico City.
Mhm.
We built a soccer arena,
It's
like a
awesome.
little indoor soccer arena.
Yeah.
And these weren't like grants; they were loans, but they were interest free, and
Right.
we got paid back on 9 out of 10 of them. And so it
That's
almost
awesome.
didn't really cost the company much money. It took some effort, but it made it a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And when we went through the 2008 2009 financial crisis in the United States, that wiped out a lot of our competitors. It
Mhm.
wiped out a lot of businesses that were in our industry.
Yeah.
And we were able to survive through it because of our strong culture, because we kind
Mhm.
of banded together and got through it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Even during this time that we are in a pandemic, I think culture is going to be one of the strongest points that will make strong teams thrive. Not just,
Absolutely.
weak teams are going to get wiped out. That's really how it is.
Absolutely. And if you had it in place going into this, your chances of coming out of it are tenfold.
Yeah.
But if you had a weak culture going in, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, you're just wallowing in stress and anxiety right now if
It's
you
going to
had a
be
weak
tough. And
culture.
you can't go back and install a culture real quick. This is
Yeah.
stuff that has to be embedded, ingrained in the DNA of the business or the company
Yeah.
for a long time.
Yeah. So something that I say is the champion is not made in the ring. He's made during training, during his in the locker
That's right.
room. You prepare for that fight in the ring, and
That's
that's
right.
what you did. You had a great culture going on for you. You had to communicate every day. Patrick Lancioni says the CEO is also the CRO, or the Chief Reminding Officer. To keep
That's right.
reminding people every day, this is why we do it. This is why we do it. Look at look at what Jorge built, an indoor soccer stadium. This is why we're doing what we're doing. And so you ingrain that culture every day so that when tough times come, you have a strong team that will band together rather than pull each other apart.
That's well
And
said.
150 people, oh my gosh, that's huge. And you were in your 20s. That is super impressive. Folks, I hope you learned from what Bryan said about building strong cultures. That's how you do it. It's an all for one game, one for
That's right.
all.